when I sort of put this together, and the topic I was given was producing the world's best steak, and I included in there the world's best Angus steak for a particular reason, is that when we competed in this competition in Europe, based in London, I was actually over there at the time, and we were beaten into second place in the Grand Championship by a full-blood Wagyu from Australia. And I understand the difference in points was very small. So what it tells you is that Angus cattle and the work that's being done by this industry has the capacity to compete on that sort of level in terms of meat quality and marbling. And I'll talk a bit more about that. So we were clearly the best Angus product in the world, and almost sort of pipped everybody else at the post. I'd just like to talk a bit about the company and who we are, and a bit about all the things that have sort of drawn the business to where it is today, and how, in fact, we do attempt every day to produce the best product that we can. Our business model really has been driven from the beginning by a focus on quality, because the business was originally set up, as I'll talk in a minute, to take product from Australia back into Japan. So the focus and the attention to detail that came with that originally from the owners, and our focus on the way we fed them, the genetics we used, that's really what continues to drive our business today. And it now drives it across 3 different product lines, 2 of them Angus and one of them a Wagyu product, of which probably more than half of them have an Angus content. But so we'll talk a bit about that. So I guess the statement that drives our business is on screen, but this came really into sort of stark relief to me when we launched our brands in Europe a few years ago. And our distributor is based in Monaco, so when the choice of who went to go and launch it, I said I would go. Richard wanted to go, but we said no. So when we launched, it was a Saturday morning in the Fairmont Hotel, and we had an audience a little like this. It was quite a large audience of distributors from across Europe, and one of them was a German company. And the gentleman came up to me after the event, and he said to me, "I love your product. Your dress was great. I want you to tick 3 boxes for me before we can make a choice about whether we buy your product or not." He said, "I want to see your animal welfare standards and how you audit them. I want to see your QA system and your environmental standards, and I want to understand that you have your staff are being paid properly and all those sort of things." And it was a rather unique sort of start to a discussion. So unless we ticked the boxes to start, we had no business at all. It didn't matter how good our meat was. And for me, it sort of really signalled the importance of the way we and other businesses in this country are delivering products to the world, that they're the important things before you get through the gate. You've got to tick a number of boxes before you can even start. So I think I will talk a bit more about that. So Ranges Valley is a very old cattle station or sheep station, originally dating back to the 1800s. Marubeni Corporation purchased it in the 80s, and they did it with a very specific purpose of sort of preparation for the liberalisation of that market in the early 90s. So it was all about providing and producing a product for the local market, and in true Japanese style, understanding the costs of production in that market, because they were going to start buying a lot of product. And it started out small, had a lot of really good things about it, including a very large lake or dam, which allowed us to build a feedlot to where it is today of sort of over 33,500. And it started that process, as I said, of ensuring that we ticked all those boxes before we started sending product into what at that time was really the most discerning beef market on the planet in Japan. So there's a few things that I guess the key drivers of our business. And as I said, if you don't produce a safe product, you're not going to get there. We've seen that come into stark relief in China in the last few years, in the melamine incident, and then more recently with McDonald's, where you have an international brand like McDonald's that sells more beef than anybody else on the planet, and something goes wrong, and their business almost collapsed in China overnight. And so if you don't produce a safe product, and this country has the best capacity to do that, but as an industry and as a business of our business, that's something that we focus on every day. We test everything that moves. If you turn up at Ranges Valley, you weigh and you test it. And that's just the way the business has to be. So you've got to produce a quality product. In a world where many other countries will produce products cheaper than us, you have to use the advantages that we've got. And those advantages are around an ability to produce safe and products of quality. And if we try and get in the gutter and down in the bottom and try and compete against Indian buffalo, we'll go broke. So Indian buffalo has its spot, and we have our spot. We've got to make sure that we know where we're playing and maintain the standards that deliver that advantage to us. Animal welfare is non-negotiable in our business, and it's non-negotiable, I'm sure, in all of yours. As an industry, we've often done things around environment and welfare without even thinking of them. We just do it naturally. It's what we do. We care for animals and we care for our properties. What we've got to do is to be seen to be doing it, and in some cases we've got to provide auditable sort of evidence of that. Ranges Valley has been subject to a break-in a few years ago by a glorious guy by the name of Mark Pearson, who is now a senator in the upper house in the New South Wales government. God bless him. He's broken into about 5 or 6 feedlots in the last 18 months. He's usually fined $100 and no sort of charge recorded. But he sent photographs of our operation of cattle asleep to all the news channels and all the papers, and the RSPCA came to our station, inspected and said it's a world-class facility. But what that did for me was I was the guy who was there that day and hosted the RSPCA. We clearly, as the live export industry understands only too well, that this is a non-negotiable thing. I hate the term social licence to operate. It sort of gives people an authority that they don't necessarily have, but the reality is they do have it, unfortunately, because of one or two particular things, and there's nothing has changed the world more than this little black piece of equipment. Take a photo, it's spread to every country in the world in about 1 millisecond. So we have to be very good at what we do, and I'll talk a bit more about that. And equally with environment, as I've said, Ranges Valley is required under its licence to test the water on 57 test sites every 3 months. All that data goes on our website and is available for the public to see. We test our soil annually, and it's also on our website. It's part of our licence requirements. So if you're in intensive agriculture, you will be under greater scrutiny than anybody else. But as this sort of goes along, you will find that will start to permeate down further and further. So as much as we might like that, I suspect they're the challenges that will come for all agricultural production. And the last of those, of course, is around pricing. So if you can sell your cattle a bit cheaper to us, that'll be of great assistance. The station. Everybody says Ranges Valley is a feedlot. Ranges Valley is a meat company, and you'll hear Jason Strong talk about that tonight. When I ran AA Company, I actually converted it into a meat company, and Jason will talk about him converting it. But in between us, there was a couple of people that buggered it up. But really, and what it does when you're a meat company is there's nothing focuses your attention more than when you put your name on a piece of meat and give it to someone to eat. And that's really a challenging thing. So we're a meat company, and we also have a very large station for the district which surrounds us, and that is critically important to running a feedlot. To have a feedlot, you've got to have access to cattle and grain, and you've got to have access to water. 33,250 cattle on the side of a hill consume 2.8 megalitres of water a day, every day. You've got to be able to have gravel to keep your pens right, all those sort of things. So it's not a simple operation as you think. So our business is really around the feed yard and the cattle, but we obviously are backgrounding at any one time, and I think at the station today there's about 5,000 cattle backgrounding on ranges, and then there's another Richard will correct me, about 2,000 or 3,000, backgrounding on other properties, most of them in the southern half of Australia, or southern half of New South Wales. A lot of it's done there, but we also obviously grow a lot of corn silage. If you own a feed yard, the really high-cost freight items that are full of water, you can't cart them very far. So we produce and use about 30,000 tonnes of corn silage a year. We budgeted to produce 35 this year, and we produced 52. Last year we budgeted 32, and we grew 12. That's the realities of farming. But it is a key component of our production system, and the station is a very important part of that. And this is where the advertising starts. So Ranges is and I've been there 7 years, and I'm not staying all that much longer, but it is a great yard. You know, it's beautifully set up, and a number of you, and quite a few of you have been there, and there are quite a lot of cattle in our yard represented in the room. So it is a particularly good yard, you know, visually, and we have a huge number of visitors, which I'll talk about. And so we make sure that the facility, you know, is up to scratch all the time. And being where it is, you know, 1,000, 1,100 metres above sea level, when you've got big black cattle like we've got, you have to have a cool environment. Ranges Valley has no shade. It doesn't actually need shade, although we still have a very high monitoring program to make sure that there's no heat events. But we really don't get heat events. And if you're going to have big black cattle, this is the best place on the planet to have them. The winters can be a challenge at times, but we've done something about that. We are in the process now of, we have engaged advisors and engineers to increase the size of the valley to 40,000. So that will commence sort of before the end of the year. This is a photo of Richard taken about 30 years ago. Haven't changed a bit. As a business, we really like to work closely with our suppliers and the seed stock producers, and that's an activity that Richard Eldershaw and all the crew that work with Richard in acquiring cattle, and it's a vital part of what we do, because everything about our business starts with quite a few people in this room. Because if you don't produce the genetics that have made the material change to the cattle that have come into our yard, then you know we wouldn't be able to produce the sort of product that we produce today that gives you the meat quality and the growth that we're seeing. And there's no doubt in the change in performance over the years. And Richard, who's been with the business probably longer than anyone in the company, I think, I'm sure you know would talk about that, and he'll talk to you if you want to. But the difference in the animals and the difference in performance over that, you know, 25 or 27 or 8 years or whatever has been quite significant. So we are focused on pure black Angus, and thank you for the advertising around that earlier. We are probably not the only one that does it, but one of the few that does it of scale like we do in terms of being verified pure black Angus. We also do a Wagyu program, and I'll talk a bit about Wagyu later on because of the impacts that it is having and the impacts that it may in fact have on our business going forward. We take a whole of life approach to our business, and when I was and the company was successful in being the New South Wales MSA Producer of the Year, and they came and shot a video at home, and we talked about, you know, sort of our philosophy around how to manage all this. But it is about attention to detail from one end to the other. If you take the best genetics and you don't wean them properly, or you put them on the truck and you don't look after them, or you get them there and you don't, you know, use proper low stress handling and all those sort of things, if you miss any of those steps, you'll fail. So for us, it's about making sure that we hit all of those steps. So it's not, you won't get, you know, the growth rates if you haven't got the health right. You won't get that performance if the calves turn up bellowing. You know, you'll have 50% pull rate instead of 12 or 15. So just every single little box has got to be ticked when you're spending, you know, $1,200 or $1,500 ration to get them to the next level. That whole low stress handling thing is really quite important throughout their life, and I'm sure the people that are in this room would be only too conscious of all of that. We take individual DNA samples of every animal that goes through the facility. That is used for a few purposes. Some of you in the room use it for your own use. Others, like our customers, such as Lotte Mart and the Lotte Group in Korea, require us to test how good that is. So we record against the NLS tag and subsequently against that DNA sample a whole lot of information, including batch numbers of products used, every single piece of data that is captured against the NLS tag. So Pfizer or Zoetis, as they are now, store those, and they test sort of annually, go into the Lotte Group facilities in Korea, take a sample of meat, and we trace that animal back. Look, it says, well, that's a lot of effort, but it is one of the tools that really does underpin the integrity of our system and of the Australian system generally. So I just go back to HGPs. Our cattle are HGP free. Don't take that as me saying I don't like HGPs. HGPs in the right environment for the right production systems are a tool that should be maintained in use in Australia, in my view. They've been in use for years and years and years. As all the people will tell you, you get 1,000 times more hormones from a bucket of coleslaw than you'll get from a piece of meat. So I think that it's important that we in this sort of environment, not too many people using it. In northern environment, quite a lot do, and certainly for the right sort of product, they're a tool that I think it would be unfortunate if it was lost. It may become a marketing advantage, which it is for some, and it is for us. But in our particular production system, HGPs don't particularly help because we don't want to impact on marbling. Just around welfare, and one of the things that people find unusual when they turn up at Ranges Valley is that I tell them that we inspect all 33,000 cattle every day, and they say, oh, you can't do that, but we do. And we've got pen riders that ride through those cattle constantly. So the rule at home is that we have to be good enough every day for people to turn up on a bus or in a car or a visitor or whatever they are that of little knowledge. We've got to be good enough that we can drive them through their feed yard and be confident about it. We last year had almost 1,000 visitors, which I was shocked when I added them up. Some of those were big busloads of groups and things, admittedly, but it was still a lot of people. And what I tell them as we drive around, I said, you've got 33,000 animals here. A town of 33,000 people's usually got at least 2 hospitals. There are people dying, people with broken legs, things go wrong. That's not the issue, it's what we do about it. And it's what our industry has done about it through its own quality systems that have been developed over 20 years now. The NFAS, which was probably the first quality system introduced into the beef production system in the country. So it's it's sort of what drives us. The other thing we do is that we have around 300 of those 1,000 customers that visit and stay. So they stay at the homestead, we host them, and I had 10 on Monday night, and they were all chefs. And typically I had 2 Michelin stars staring over my shoulder as I cooked steak, which is a frightening experience. But they just love the experience. And when you're charging them a bucket load of money for the product, they want to know why that is. What makes it different? Where does the quality come from? All the things that are important. So that's why we do it. My wife doesn't particularly like doing it, but between us and the other staff members, we host them, and we've had people from every country of the 20-odd countries that we supply. The other obvious things around health protocols and all those sort of things which are important to our business. And one of the things that we do with people who visit the facility is I talk to them about animal behaviour. And as I look around this room, I strongly suspect that every single person in this room went to lunch and came back and sat in the same seat. And you see them on the bus and you say, did you know one another before you arrived? No, I didn't know them. I said, I suspect that you now understand there's a couple of noisy people. There's one you don't really like. There's and after about 24 hours or so, you figure it all out and and everything sort of finds a level and you're all comfortable. And as I'm sure all of you know, and particularly those who are in the dairy industry as well, cattle like social structures being properly developed. They then become very creatures of habit. They eat in the same bunk position, they eat in the same order, and all those sort of things. So we've got to try and provide an environment that satisfies that. So we want our cattle fed within a sort of a 10-minute window and within a tolerance of 10 kilograms and 3,500 kilos in a bunk. Just little things. It's all those things that make that tiny difference. The last thing here is around pen condition, and we live in a wet environment. So being in a wet environment, it's very important for us to make sure, wet, and particularly in the wintertime, that we have a comfortable environment, and our cattle are big. Our cattle come out at over 800 kilograms. So all our heavy Angus cattle now spend the last 100 days in pens with wood chip at about 6 or 7 inches deep, and that's made a dramatic improvement to the welfare of the animals, to the production of the animals, and a whole lot of other safety issues as well. Costs about $6,500 to $7,000 a pen, but what it allows us to not clean the pen as often as well, which we're allowed to do, because otherwise our cleaning protocol is around 50 days, although we average 32. So we do all those things because you've got standing in that pen something that you guys have spent, years producing. We've spent another 270 days producing. We don't want something to go wrong at the last minute. And it really does become important to us that we have done that, in my view. Our QA systems. Our QA systems are obviously important, and we've developed those over time and are part of most businesses. And in intensive ag, you've just got to have them, and we have. And I said the National Feedlot Accreditation Scheme is 20 years old. We just reviewed it, and it has certainly provided a base for us to make sure that we do the same thing. We repeat it and repeat it and repeat it, which is really important. I won't go into too much detail about this. Most of you understand what we do, but we buy some light cattle and we feed when we grow them up and background them. We also buy direct entry animals, and we do a lot with around 11,000 Wagyu animals. We do breed about 600 from our own cows, and then probably another 500 or 600 from others where we provide bulls. So we do breed some Wagyu cross cattle. Those are all out of Holstein, and the rest are purchased. And we background quite a few, and we have the 3 programs, as I said. Our Wagyu, our Coles Finest program, which is around 12,500 animals a year. And they're the ones that actually won the MSA Producer of the Year. We're very proud of that because most of the other competitors were relatively smaller. So for us to achieve the levels we did with 12,000 cattle is something that everybody in our organisation is very conscious of how hard that was and what a great result it was. We've just completed a $6 million upgrade of our feed mill and facilities. It was typical of a feed yard that started off small and ended up big. And I think the previous managing director had tried for 7 or 8 years to get the funding, and we finally got it. And it's been completed. At this point, I will say one of the things about grain, it was mentioned earlier, grain prices have certainly at a lower point than they've been. I think we were quoted new season crop 293 yesterday, and this time last year we wrote the same product about 311. So it's still at reasonably low levels, and the international volume of grain is obviously around the world is quite high. Again, I won't tell you how to suck eggs. Most of you know a fair bit about grain feeding, but it's managing that transition from a grass diet to a grain diet is particularly important, and everybody that's in intensive ag understands that, and particularly with a ruminant animal. So you've got to do all the things that make sure that works. So that transition and that accuracy and all those things that we do really underpins our ability to keep them alive and keep them growing very well. So, as I said, we're really driven by our meat operation. So all our production, except our Coles product, is produced under our own brands and ends up in countries all around the world. We grade all our own product using Osmeat grading, which not everybody does, and make sure that it does meet the specifications of our business. So, as I said, when you put your brand on a box, it really becomes important. And what it delivers is something that our customers appreciate. I had a discussion with a very high-profile chef who is a supporter of our business, and he said to me, Don, there is 3 sorts of people coming to my restaurant. So I have 10 restaurants, hundreds of chefs. The top 10% are brilliant. The next 80% are commercial. The bottom 10% I'm trying to get rid of. And so your product, they can't mug it up. He said those three sorts of people that come into the restaurant, they're either wealthy, they have a company credit card, or it's a special occasion. He said they know it's expensive when they come in. That's not the point. It's about not being disappointed when you've spent the $70 a plate. So he said that's not a reason to put the price up, but it's a reason for you to make sure that every box you deliver to us is the same. So that when they pull it out of that box, it is identical each time. And we've done a lot of work around our branding and our marbling to make sure that we're quite narrow in our marbling ranges, so that what you buy is what you expected to get, you paid for it, and you received it. So in the introduction, it talked about us going to around 20 countries. When this business started, 100% to Japan. When I arrived 7 years ago, it was between 70 and 80% went to Japan. There was a good reason for that. That was 2 reasons. One was the company's Japanese owned, and 2 is that was the best market. It is no longer the best market. If you cannot send full sets to Japan and succeed in this business. You can't send full sets anywhere and succeed. You have to achieve the highest price for all the bits that you produce and sell. We get $28 a kilo for brisket, and if you can try and get $28 a kilo for brisket in the domestic market a year ago, they were worth about $6. They've now suddenly become worth $28 because everybody's gone mad on smokers. But we get $7 for top sides and $28 for tongues, and tongues in Australia are worth about $3.50. So you have to make sure that everything goes to the right place. So as you can see from here, Japan was clearly. I'm not too sure what I'm pointing this at. So Japan was in fact our largest forever, and it's now pipped into second place. And our owners are not sure whether they're comfortable about that or not. But the business is performing well enough, so they are. But what it tells you is that you can't sell loins to Japan. You've got to sell them in the domestic market. And of course, the emergence of China. China was almost nothing in our business 2 or 3 years ago. I was in China and Japan last week, and our distributor in China just built a new facility, which is 10 times larger than the one they previously had, and they want more and more product. Our product doesn't fit in the general Chinese operations. It fits in the high-end white tablecloth market, into the Morton steakhouses and all these sort of places, because those sort of people and the Grand Hyatts and the like, it's very important for them that they have a brand. As I said it before with the McDonald's experience, if you go into a Morton steakhouse in Pudong in China, you want to make sure as Morton's you don't kill someone. And if you are buying domestic, you run a risk. So that's why not only our product, but they're buying high quality imported production. The other thing we do is provide great flexibility. So for Morton's, for example, we produce the tomahawks, with the big bone on. They want it Frenched, so the intercostals off. We do the Kerry Hotel Group, and they want them 1.5 inches longer, and the intercostals left on. If you're a JBS or a Cargill, you're just not going to do that. And I understand that. I wouldn't if I was them either. But our business is around matching the requirements. And by doing that, we get to charge them more. And we sell them some bone. There's a lot of good things around being a good customer-focused business. But what it means is that they can present a product in their facilities that is ready to go. Because they, like most people, have great difficulty getting butchers and things to work in a restaurant in Pudong in China. So if you can do it yourself, it's all the better. So we've developed a whole range of brands. Branding is a risk-reward thing to do. As I said, there's nothing more confronting than putting a brand on something, and it's probably the most confronting thing you can do is provide your beef for an industry function. because they'll usually muck it up. And of course there's a lot of fanfare, and the MC gets up and says, thank you very much to Ranges Valley or AACO or someone, and out the steak comes and it's been boiled for an hour. But the value of a brand delivers a reward, but it has a risk. And that risk is that your name is there, and that needs to be underpinned by all the things that you do and that we do. And that's what delivers the sort of value that we can garner out of the sort of production that you people spend all your time on. So when I arrived, the company was really had a few brands, but at the end of the day, a lot of it was focused around just Ranges Valley. So what we tried to do was change that to make sure that we confined our product into quite tight marbling ranges. So we developed a brand called Black Market. This particular brand is our brand in Europe, and Highland is the Marble Score 2 Angus product that comes out of the Narua Bokajo brand, which is our Japanese brand, has been for many, many years. And Black Onyx is our principal Marble Score 3-4 Angus. So we sort of have a hierarchy of brands, and we are in the process of finalising the brands, the rebranding of our Wagyu operation. But in Angus, it's broken into those three categories. The Marble Score 5, the Black Market brand, which is the one that won in Europe, is a Marble Score 5 plus, and nobody else in the world that I'm aware of does that. And Richard just did the numbers a minute ago, but I think around 8 to 10% currently of our Angus production is marbling 5 and better. I can't imagine that would have been possible with the genetics that were available 10 or 15 years ago. So the sort of work that's been done really is delivering something. And it is, and when you see it, it's quite an extraordinary product. So again, just a little bit of advertising, but they're all the nice little awards that we've won. So I said we're very proud of this bottom one because it was very difficult to achieve. Just make like a couple of quick comments more broadly, and then have I got question time available? What time am I going to run to? 3, do I? Oh, we've got 5 minutes left. Okay. Look, I think this has been covered to a large degree by Ben and others, but we're really now in an interesting time. We're going to have lower numbers for a few years, which we've all talked about. Live export is now becoming important in southern as well as northern Australia. Wagyu. Let me touch on Wagyu. Wagyu's had a couple of instances where it's come and gone and risen and failed, and it's now back. But what we've got now is a diversity of markets for that product, which wasn't available last time it got oversupplied. I spoke at the Wagyu conference 10 days ago, and I issued what I believe was a reasonably direct warning. I was not universally applauded, but nonetheless, if you commoditise Ferraris, they're pretty hard to sell. And I think if you do that with Wagyu, you use the brand generally across product that can be from Marble Score 2 to 9. If you use indeterminate genetics in the bull and join it to indeterminate genetics on the female side, you'll get an ordinary result. And I'm really unconcerned about. I'm not concerned about the numbers of high quality Wagyu production coming forward because there's a market available. But if they start to produce thousands of Marble Score 2s and 3s, then that's a problem. Those cattle will be 30 to 40% less productive in terms of performance and perform at no better than the middle of our production in Angus. And I think that's a problem for them because, and I've had people last night. I've had people in the Qantas Lounge in Sydney yesterday as I was there, came and asked me about, I'm going to join my cattle to Wagyu. And I said, well, if you're not using the right bulls and you're not using the right cows, don't do it. But if you are, then it can be a great adjunct to an Angus production system or whatever you like. But if you cross them with a Euro animal, you're going to have a problem. I said the other one was, I said earlier around market diversification. I think it's been one of the critical changes. As we saw with LiveX, you can come undone very easily if you don't have a diversified market. Japan, US, and others will remain very important to our business. They are more stable. Indo is always going to be problematic because they do all sorts of strange things at times. You know, they just fined all the importers $30-odd million the other day. Things like that, which are a bit unfortunate. So, and the last one of those, of course, is domestic. It's our largest market. It's very important to us. We need to make sure we look after it. TPP was mentioned. I think TPP will struggle because of US politics. I doubt either side's probably got enough support in Congress to get it through. I'd like to think that was possible, but maybe not, which will really annoy the Americans because we stole a march on them in Japan. They were really annoyed we did that, and they said, we'll fix you with the TPP, we'll all be on the same footing, but that's not likely to happen immediately, I don't think. So look, summarising with probably not much time left, but so we're focused on a high-quality business. That's the way we're driven. It's the way our brand works, and I think it delivers value for us, and I hope it delivers some value for you. We do really appreciate the work that you do for our business, and it makes a hell of a difference to be able to buy the right sort of cattle. So flexibility for our customers, a diversity of markets for our business, and your genetics, and I'm pretty sure Ranges Valley will still be a significant part of the Angus industry in the future. So thank you very much.